Welcome to Epilogue Podcast, the show where we discuss some stuff that happened on a different show ages ago which nobody really cares about anymore.
Hello, I'm Portponky.
And I'm LeBloc.
Today we're discussing Deep Space Nine, Season 5, Episode 15, By Inferno's Light. Cardassia joins the Dominion and attempts to destroy the Federation, Klingon and Romulan fleets, whilst Garrick and friends escape from internment Camp 371.
Holy cow, more twists.
Was there more twists?
Well, it's just plot stuff happening. I did not see Cardassia joining the Dominion.
Oh, yeah, that was a big twist, now I think about it. Ducat gave them all the shaft.
Not surprising. I mean, he clearly wanted to kill everyone all the time.
Sisko even laments that he regrets saving Ducat's life on a few occasions.
I understand where he's coming from because it would have saved him from his current headache. But that's kind of a weird thing to say. I wish I just let you die on the job.
Don't put it beyond Sisko. He would let it happen, I'm sure. It seemed like they were more annoyed that it was Ducat in charge rather than just the Dominion and Cardassians teaming up.
That is where the focus was.
I'm sure it would be bad with anyone, but with Ducat in charge, well, they're familiar with that guy. They know he's a little enthusiastic. What was your overall opinion of this one then?
Oh, I like this episode a whole lot, but full disclosure, I am predisposed to love anything to do with prison breaks and tunneling and secrecy, stuff like that. Great Escape is one of my favorite movies. I also love Shawshank Redemption. So that stuff really spoke to me.
Oh, it's directly referencing The Great Escape. Well, maybe not directly, but as direct as you can get without outright, I don't know, quoting it or whatnot.
Yeah.
Garrick's claustrophobia, especially.
Right. You have a guy in charge of tunneling with claustrophobia and then powering through it anyway.
I thought the way it was brought up was really clunky. He starts monologuing about claustrophobia.
I enjoyed that because Garrick is so good at persuasion, and here he has his greatest challenge trying to reprogram himself to avoid psychological collapse.
There was a few more hints of Garrick's past. Well, obviously, he has claustrophobia. That's a huge weakness for a spy to have a psychological disorder.
But now we know he can't stow away in tiny boxes or anything, which is a shame.
Oh, he probably could. Why would he ever need to do that?
Spy stuff?
Well, yeah, I guess. I must say, on rewatch, the latter half of this episode kind of loses a bit of steam. It's very exciting, but they get you so pumped for this huge space battle, and it's a ruse, which is good. That's a great little plot line, but I kind of wanted a big space battle.
It is a huge tease. We've been expecting a huge space battle for 2 episodes, and then nothing.
I suspect it's fine the first time round, but when you've seen it a few times, you know it's all for naught. It's fine. I mean, it's good that it has a plot line and it didn't just have a big shooting war, but I like those too, you know.
I didn't think about that watching it, but I could see why it would be disappointing.
Disappointing is not the right word. It's maybe a little bit unsatisfactory. You want Ducat's head to get kicked in.
If anything disappointed me about this episode, it's when the Jem'Hadar guy doesn't, when he backs off, when he yields. I don't understand why he did that.
Because he could not force Worf to yield.
He could kill him, though.
That's not yielding. He couldn't break him. Worf's will was as strong as the Jem'Hadar's.
Worf must have been so pumped. He got to fight to the death repeatedly, day after day, satisfy his thirst for blood.
Yes, although if Martok had been there for 2 years, surely he'd have clocked up quite a few kills as well. I guess Worf was on a kill streak, cranking up a massive combo, bonus points, speedrun points, all this sort of stuff.
Okay, you explained the yielding thing for me, but another thing that disappointed me, why the guy, the Jem'Hadar guard, just randomly decides to fiddle with the wall panel out of nowhere when they're looking for Garrick. I know why they did it. They need to advance the plot and cause tension. Oh, he's looking where Garrick is hiding and we know he's in there. But it was out of nowhere.
Well, kind of. The other Jem'Hadar guy had been pressing Bashir for a while, and presumably that guy's eyes noticed the panel was scratched or scraped or misaligned or something. If it's been crowbarred off with a shiv a bunch of times, then might exhibit wear. And the Jem'Hadar eyes might be fantastically good.
Okay, fair enough. It's not where that we can see, but maybe it's more apparent to them. It's in their genetic code to notice minor scuffs on the wall.
Well, good eyesight and good attention to detail would be good properties for soldiers. There was a lot of baffling things about their super tense escape, such as the runabout was just there.
That was strange. I don't know how to think about that. So was it gently gliding along with the asteroid? I didn't get it.
Well, presumably it was orbiting the asteroid. But they didn't get captured anywhere near the asteroid. They got captured miles away in the nebula. Miles, like light years.
Oh, I didn't even remember that part.
So presumably they either flew to the internment camp in the runabout, or they tractor beamed the runabout there and left it next to the internment camp.
They need to review the internment camp procedures.
Well, yeah, they're letting people escape. I suppose if there was no runabout, there is no way they could have escaped. Well, I say that, obviously it's fiction, so they could have just made up whatever, but it would become overly elaborate for them to somehow escape from a stationary facility on an asteroid in the middle of Dominion space.
It reminded me of Alcatraz in that way, which was a prison in the middle of a vast body of water. So even if you escape it, you still have to deal with the elements.
People are generally aware of Alcatraz.
I think so.
Yes,
right?
You don't.
Okay.
Yes, of course. It's like the most famous prison in the world.
I don't know. It's weird because I've lived near it my whole life, so I don't know what kind of awareness other people have of it.
Well, why do you think the prison in Harry Potter was called Azkaban?
Because it sounds wizardry.
It sounds like Alcatraz. Well, this is like Alcatraz times a million billion, and they just left a chip there and presumably let them zoom away whilst no one was chasing them.
It's like if they left a boat outside Alcatraz.
Yeah. Oh, not even a boat, like a yacht. Fully furbished with like a crew and everything.
This won't cause a problem.
Just leave that yacht right in the blind spot.
Our walls are so high, people will never escape.
when Bashir escaped, he stabbed a Jemitar guy right in the throat. He didn't hesitate at all.
No, he didn't.
I mean, good on him. That's the Starfleet training and stuff, I guess. But it was brutal. Like, I expect that from Garrick or Cisco, probably, or some of the other characters that are a bit more experienced or bloodthirsty, I guess. But from Bashir, who's a doctor and still kind of green behind the ears, he didn't hesitate at all.
It was a bit strange to watch, knowing that.
Oh, you're going to think differently about Bashir now.
He's been changed by prison.
He's only in there for a month.
A lot can happen in 1 month.
Yeah, like he gets the smallest amount of stubble. Oh, it'd be great if he just had a massive bushy beard. And they said, "How long have you been here?" "Oh, just a couple weeks. I shave all the time on the station."
I have to shave 5 times a day.
So, moving from one Bashir to another, the Changeling Infiltrator pulled their supernova gambit, which kind of doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, it doesn't, but they needed something.
Well, if the star had gone supernova, well, first of all, I think the ships probably would have been able to get out the way. They're not that close. Supernova, what is it? The sun is 8 minutes to Earth, so you could probably guess it's about a similar time to Bajor. But Deep Space Nine is nowhere near the Bajoran star. It is way out, like Jupiter distance, maybe. Who knows? So presumably they'd have an hour or two to run off. Plus, if you're gonna nuke the station, you're probably gonna nuke the wormhole anyway, making the whole Dominion involvement completely moot.
So what you're saying is that this plan was perfect.
It was typical of the founders. It was heavy-handed to the nth degree. Actually had quite a lot of plot development as well. The Katoma Accords were put back in place after a 30-second speech from Cisco. So the Klingon Empire is now allied with the Federation.
And we have permanent Klingon military presence on the station now. Or at least that's what they said. I don't know if something will happen.
Martok! He's hanging about. I will not have a bad word said about Martok. He is the best.
He is the best. And I want to point out when he says, "I would be honored," that's usually a sort of hollow response coming from someone. But coming from a Klingon, and especially Martok, it sounds so profound. That was kind of interesting. They took this old, tired phrase, and it works much better here than it should.
It's the way he says everything. He's always sort of full of wonder and amazement. There was some other plots tied up. Sort of Cisco's emissary arc, I guess, moved on because he predicted a cloud of locusts flying to Cardassia, hovering over Bajor for a bit. All that stuff. That could have been this episode he was predicting.
Or something else, because predictions are so vague.
Yeah, basically. It kind of fits this one, but maybe it'll kind of fit some other stuff in the future. In production terms, it was supposed to be this one.
Okay.
I agree with you, though. There's no way to really know.
That's what makes those predictions so pointless. If they don't actually help you figure out the future, then it's useless. You can always look back and try to fit the past to whatever the prediction was, but that's not useful.
Well, the one thing this was predicting was that Cardassia would join the Dominion, and they didn't get it. So, yep, 100% useless. They should have just done the brain surgery on Cisco straight away.
Was it worth it, Cisco?
By the way, that was the changeling treating him.
Oh, yeah.
It performed brain surgery on him.
Well, I hope that changeling did its homework.
They're going to scan Cisco's head later and say someone's left a chocolate eclair and a tube of Smarties in there.
That's Bashir's calling card. He does that all the time.
Oh, so changeling was just mimicking him exactly.
Yep.
Doctor, I really don't think you should be eating pastries during brain surgery. Bashir just responds with his mouth full. He's like,
I don't think anyone would question his actions during surgery.
there are limits to what you can do. He's a genius doctor, but getting pastry crumbs in someone's brain would elicit questions.
I don't know. He's been recognized publicly as a genius doctor. Would you really want to challenge him? Maybe he knows something you don't know about pastries and their effects.
These pastries are laced with tricordium. They help brain recovery.
Exponentially. Don't challenge me.
Well, in Star Trek world, it's kind of true. They don't tend to question people if they seem really sure of themselves. Which is probably why they're rife with infiltrators.
Just play the confidence game and you're set.
Cisco ordered the runabout to be destroyed, knowing that there's Starfleet crew on board.
If you want to make an egg... Damn it, I screwed it up.
If you want to make an egg, you've got to squeeze a chicken.
I think I've made that same mistake before.
If you want to make an egg, you have to do some extremely fine surgery on an omelette.
I'm having deja vu. I think we've had the same exact thing happen. But they were none of the people he liked, so he was okay with blowing them to bits.
He didn't recognize the names. Who's on the runabout? Changeling and... yeah, I don't know those guys. Kill them all. Well, we giggle about it, but that's a kind of really tough command decision. Well, not really, because he's going to cause a supernova, so the decision's actually very obvious.
Kill these 5 or wipe out billions.
I think Garrick's going to tap Zial.
Almost certainly.
If he wants to wind up Ducat, he has that avenue to explore. That's not euphemism.
He's abandoned Zial, though, as his daughter.
It would still wind him up if Garrick became involved. Ducat isn't the most reasonable and he's quite reactive.
That's a good word for Ducat.
Facts may not be the pressing issue if he finds out that Garrick and Zial are bumping. Just the look on Garrick's face when he said hi to Zial, he's like, should I go there? Maybe I'm just reading too much into it.
She's a consenting adult and the only other Cardassian on the station, so it's probably hard for Garrick to resist.
Oh, it's easy for him to resist. He's omnisexual.
He just needs to yell at himself.
His brain is hardwired to give him O faces at the touch of a button. He's probably not too fussed about that. Why didn't that help with the claustrophobia, I wonder? Maybe that's why Tane exiled him, because he had a psychological disorder which would make him susceptible to interrogation.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe.
I don't know if it would be the reason, but it could be a reason.
So, after all that fighting, after all said and done, do you have a quote to summarize the happenings in the world of Deep Space Nine?
There is no greater enemy than one's own fears.
They resisted the phrasing. Was it JFK that said this?
Oh, shoot. It was a president. There's nothing to fear but fear itself.
Inaugural address of Franklin D. Roosevelt. I always assumed that sort of statement comes from JFK because he had lots of switcheroo statements.
They always come off as eloquent, even when they're not saying much.
Don't ask what your country could do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. We don't go to the moon because it's easy. We go because it's hard. Blah, 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 blah. So they avoided that phrasing, which is good, because that would have stuck out like a sore thumb.
That would have been awful, and I would not have chosen it.
And quite often they don't avoid common phrasing. Well, usually with Quark.
It's always with Quark. Well, other characters too, but so often with Quark. I think they decided at some point, let's just always give him Earth phrasings.
'Cause it's funny.
And makes no sense.
Is the only fear the fear of fear? Nope, I don't really think so.
That's not how it's worded, though, in this episode.
What was it again?
There is no greater enemy than one's own fears.
It's actually slightly different from fear is fear. Because this phrasing at least acknowledges that there are things you should legitimately be afraid of. But
right.
Confidence is across the board helpful.
And a lot of the times, what gets in your way is yourself.
Well, yeah. If it's Worf and Martok and Garrick and people, they can do anything. They're galactic superheroes. But luckily, they're overwhelmed with bravery, too. I'm making it sound silly. It wasn't silly in the episode.
No, it worked well.
So is that going to be the hallmark of the upcoming Cardassian Dominion hostilities? The greatest enemy will be their own fear of the Dominion. I don't think so, because they seem to have forgotten about changeling infiltrators and stuff. They're too absent-minded to be scared.
I was going to say they became complacent, but I think it's more they don't realize what a threat they are, and they're being stupid about it.
Maybe a bit. Well, that one nearly supernovaed the Bajoran's son, so if they hadn't got that message from the Gamma Quadrant, that he would have done it. And the Bashir changeling was even the guy saying, come on, changelings, we need blood screenings. Come on. He's mocking them for being so bad.
That was awesome. He points out that he would send a changeling.
That is literally what I would do.
Because I am one. I mean...
I was one previously in the adversary. The second changeling that's impersonated Bashir.
Maybe his features are easy to shapeshift into.
I think we should call it quits on this episode. And move on to whatever's next. Okay.
Let's do it.